Topic at the outset, I'm thankful to AIOS and Neeraj for having me part of this prestigious course. The topic I'm going to discuss is if you have imperfect visual acuity, postoperative visual acuity after perfect surgery, what could go wrong? And the topic that I'm going to cover is errors in refraction. Is that the cause? So what went wrong even after a perfect surgery and the factors that can affect post-operative vision? One of the causes could be preoperative refraction. So a thorough manifest refraction is to be completed and checked against a cycloplegic refraction. Having both refractions will help identify patients with latent hyperopia as well as help guard against overestimating myopic patients. And the errors that could occur are errors in retinoscopy, errors in cycloplegia, errors in autorefraction, and refraction not done by the operating surgeon himself. And the errors in retinoscopy could be because the patient, what we ideally should do, patient should be asked to fixate on a distant target in order to relax accommodation. And if the patient is not fixating on a distant target, then it may lead to erroneous retinoscopy. Distance of retinoscopy, we really have to take care because normally we are used to subtracting one diopter for doing refraction at a distance of 1 meter. But if the working distance between your retinoscope and the phoropter is less than that, say about half a meter, then you need to subtract 2 diopters from the final spherical correction to account for this. So correct value should be subtracted in order to get the correct retinoscopy values. If unskilled refractionist is there, maybe your optometrist who is not very skilled is doing, then he has to see that the axis of the beam should align with the axis of the motion. Confusion can be particularly created by scissoring reflexes, which need to be neutralized accordingly. And other factors are not using the current or latest retinoscopy finding and retinoscopy not performed by the operating surgeon himself, because retinoscopy depends immensely on the skill and experience of the examiner. Hence, there can be subjective variation in the retinoscopic values. There can be errors in cycloplegia because while performing retinoscopy, outcome measures rely deeply on the patient's cooperation and his ability to maintain distance fixation. And the fixation shifts causing fluctuating reflexes, loss of cooperation, and latent hyperopia. They can all be unfavorable factors affecting the results. So it is very important to do cycloplegic refraction and equally important to use appropriate cycloplegic agents. There can be errors in preoperative assessment. Proper history taking is very important. When a patient first presents for the consideration of refractive surgery, it is important to know why they have chosen to get refractive surgery done and what are the goals of surgery. And once these questions are answered, we'll have a better idea of the type of surgery, distance vision, monovision, and the patient's expectations. It is equally important to note the correct age and proper history regarding frequent change of glasses should be noted. Obtaining a thorough medical and ocular history is important to look for diseases that potentially can affect the outcome of the surgery. Systemic diseases such as diabetes, autoimmune diseases, collagen vascular diseases may alter wound healing, and conditions such as ocular herpes or peripheral keratitis may cause reactivation after the LASIK surgery. And patients with history of strabismus surgery may also experience a recurrence of squint after the surgery. Thorough list of medication history is important because medications such as migraine drug sumatriptan and tretinoin, which is used to treat severe acne, may result in ocular surface drying. And it is also important to know past surgical history. Important to rule out certain syndromes that are associated with high refractive errors like Marfan syndrome, Ehlers-Danlos, Alport, Weil-Marchesani, and Strickler, which all cause myopia. And it is also important to rule out uncontrolled diabetes mellitus. Preoperative visual acuity assessment is very important. It is important to note monocular as well as binocular vision. Near vision should be noted. Please rule out amblyopia. Note ocular dominance. And it is preferable to use Logmar chart over Snellen's chart to help reduce certain limitations. Equally important to evaluate ocular surface disorders. Please do Shermer test. You can do OSDI questionnaire also to evaluate if there is presence of any ocular surface disorders. Otherwise, patient after keratorefractive surgery is going to have a lot of problems and will be an unsatisfied patient after the surgery. The visual outcome of refractive surgery can be assessed in terms of visual performance, not only visual acuity, but also contrast sensitivity, depth of focus, and the ablative procedure cause changes in the stroma and Bowman's layer, which can cause wavefront aberrations. And these wavefront aberrations should be estimated, because after your refractive surgery, refractive correction, although the refractive errors may be reduced, but higher order aberrations like trefoil, coma, and spherical aberration may be induced. Slit lamp examination is a must to do thorough and corneal examination, rule out endothelial dystrophy. Please also look into the lens and find if you are missing any crystalline lens changes. Look for dysfunctional lens, look for any nuclear sclerosis changes. There can be errors in keratometry and topography. If improper topography assessment is done, there can be error in autokeratometry or pachymetry. If by mistake you have used old keratometric values, and if keratometry and topography has not been done by the operating surgeon. So to make keratometry as accurate and consistent as possible, we must the one person should do all these assessments, and preferably on a single instrument, because all these instruments like autokeratometers, manual keratometers, topographers, they estimate different zones, different areas, and by different methods. For example, auto K measures central 2.5 millimeter zone, whereas manual keratometry measures estimates a larger 3.2 millimeter zone, and simulated keratometry employs a different method altogether. It is equally important to calibrate your instruments and keep a log of these evaluations. And recent versions of the softwares require the user to confirm the accuracy of the instrument against a calibration test block at the beginning of each day. Validation is very important. Second check should be done in case you have keratometry less than 40 or more than 48 diopters. If the difference between the K of two eyes is more than 1.5 diopters, K1 and K2 difference is more than 3 diopters, and if there is difficulty in obtaining the readings. Preoperative optic nerve assessment is important to rule out any evidence of glaucomatous optic neuropathy or disc pallor, and also look into the periphery, do indirect ophthalmoscopy to find out any degeneration required in treatment. So it is very important to counsel the patient. You can tell the patient that the post-operative period, the vision may remain blurry for some period of time. Equally important to inform the patient regarding proper eye hygiene, and particularly not to rub the eyes, as a flap displacement can occur. Patient should also be advised not to play any strenuous contact sports, and patient should be made aware of glare, halos, and difficulty in driving. Proper patient counseling, and most important is to for us to do proper cycloplegic refraction, because that is the crux of my talk. I'll give one example here. A patient, this patient example I have borrowed from Dr. Piyush Kapoor, a patient who had undergone pre-operative myopic LASIK, as she was wearing about minus 2.5 diopters of spectacle correction. But she was not satisfied, and ultimately she landed up at a place where unfortunately depending on the manifest refraction, the myopic laser correction was done, and patient after the surgery was also not satisfied, and then the thorough examination, thorough evaluation was done, cycloplegic refraction was done, and lo and behold, what we found was that the patient was having 7 diopters of hypermetropia. So what could have been gone wrong in this case? Probably patient was having the accommodation spasm, and because of that, this mildly hyperopic patient was accepting myopic glasses. And what happened was that now we are faced with a situation where 7 diopters of hypermetropic correction is there, and we have given patient 1 diopter, and after fogging, we are giving patient to hope that 2.5 diopter has been accepted, and let's see we can slowly increase the hyperopic refraction correction in this patient later on. Thank you everybody for your kind and patient hearing.